Greetings and welcome to STEM Inspired, where we utilize personal stories and experiences to interest the possibility of a STEM profession in adolescence. I'm your host, Jacob Zendejas. Today on the show we have a graduate student who's studying neuroscience at Harvard University, which is studying how our brain works. He grew up in Oxnard, California and attended Channel Islands High School. His curiosity and persistence to ask questions is what led to his graduate studies today. Please give a warm welcome to Sal Brito. Could you tell us your name and what you do for a living?
Cool. Yeah. My name's Sal Brito, commonly go by as Sal. Right now, I'm a current graduate student working towards my PhD in neuroscience at Harvard University.
Interesting. So you're a grad student, that's your job right now for what you're doing, or?
Yes. As a grad student, basically, I get funded to go study. So we get classes for a year, and then we conduct research in the lab for up to 5 years. And we get a tuition waived as well as a stipend to basically live, get food, have a home, and do science.
How is it to conduct research in engineering?
It's fun. So right now, I've been interested in neuroscience since high school, especially since I took a psychology course in high school. But right now, what I'm working on is, so the first year in neuroscience in grad school, they just teach you the basics of neuroscience. They get you up to par with the rest of the class. We learn things like biology, chemistry. We've also learned things like computational neuroscience. So it's a big mixture of stuff. The first year, there's classes. And within that first year, you also get to rotate in different labs. So essentially, you get to taste different labs throughout a year, up to 3. And after that, you get to choose a lab to join. And when you choose the lab to join, you get to work on your thesis and your dissertation, which takes up to it takes between 4 to 6 years, depending on the project and depending on the work you put in. But so far, I'm in my first year. I've been rotating.
Okay, interesting. So you get a taste of a variety of different things within the different labs?
Right. And then you get to find what you want to do here.
Okay, and what do you see as rewarding about the program you're in right now? What do you see as very rewarding for you?
So I've found myself to be inquisitive. I like asking questions and to a certain extent getting answers. I like pursuing the unknown. And with research and with science, you find that there's just a lot of things that are still yet to be discovered. That's what I find rewarding, just the answer.
Yeah. And when has that started to become an interest for you, just to, find the answers for, different things that are happening, like you said, within the brain?
Yeah, so surprisingly for me, it took actually a while. During middle school, high school, I liked school. I actually enjoyed it. I did well, but I really wasn't inquisitive. I was just, doing the homework, and I took things for face value. I enjoyed math. I enjoyed the basic sciences. But once I reached high school, I took a psychology class, and it got me really, really, really interested in the brain. And I had my professor at Channel Islands High School, actually, who would teach us all about science. And then I started asking him questions. I would stay during lunch and ask him a little bit more about the class and a little about science, about the brain. And we kept having these conversations that ultimately kept me going. Entering college, I wanted to do psychology, but at the same time, I felt that I also wanted to understand the brain at a more basic level. So cells, molecules, chemicals. So I also wanted to do something along the lines of biochemistry or biology. And I took that route. And thankfully, one of the teachers in my first year class, he approached me and he asked me if I wanted to do research. And at the time, I had no idea what research really was. I came into college, I thought it was just about classes. And I just said, yeah, okay, let's do it. I don't mind. And through that, I was able to understand that there's a benefit and a reward to asking questions. And I feel like I've still got time to learn about that, because sometimes in class, I'm afraid to ask a question, and it's natural and it's normal to be afraid. But if you ask the question, then you can, not only will you get an answer, but you can ask more questions, which is really cool.
And when you were younger, could be like 8 to 14, what did you imagine you would do for work?
I know at a young age, for sure, I wanted to be a cop or a police officer. But as I started going into middle school and high school, I was really interested in space. I actually told my mom that I wanted to join NASA. I wanted to go up into space, study the stars, look at all those nice things outside of the world. But I remember that the big pivotal moment for me was in 2011 when NASA shut down their space program because of deficits or cuts to the NASA budget. And I think even though that wasn't directly affecting me, and I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't pursue that. And coincidentally, around the same time, a year later, I took the psychology course. So it was like a nice change of things for me. I was like, oh, okay, maybe it's not space. I can just go a little bit closer to home and study the brain.
Definitely, everything kind of just fell into place. Mm-hmm.
Right.
How was school when you were younger? Was there any other interests like growing up? Were you just really invested in the topics there?
Yeah, so I found that my parents at a young age instilled in me the importance of responsibility. And I realized that they were putting the effort to put clothes and, food on the table for me. So the least I could do in return would be to just not necessarily completely follow their orders, but just make them happy to the extent of going to school and doing my job as well. Going to school, paying attention in classes. And from then on out, I think the responsibility was natural for me to come back home, finish the homework. And thankfully, I was a good student in the sense of me getting fair grades, good grades. I never had an issue with not wanting to go to school. I think at some point you get tired of homework, but there's always that like a class where you're just like, oh, okay, I don't mind it. I like that. I like those questions. But there's classes where you're not interested in, and that's natural. It's normal to not be interested in some things. But I think when I found my interest at the time, during school, I liked math a lot. So I took pride in going to math class. I enjoyed it. A lot of cool homework, even though people were like, no, homework sucks. Like, oh, no, it's just, math.
What are your most vivid childhood memories of, I know you said school, but of things that just have led you to your interest in neuroscience?
Yeah, so let's see. I don't think there was a childhood experience for me that really made it. Like I told you, I don't think at a young age, I knew that neuroscience would be the thing I would be doing. I know that at a young age, I would always be able to read with my mom and my dad. My mom always tells me that actually, so I was born in Mexico, and when I was in Mexico with my grandparents, my grandpa would be always on the table with me and he would read the newspaper to me because that's what we had back then over there, reading the newspaper. And I would ask, oh, what's this? What's that? And he would teach me the alphabet through the newspaper, which would be really interesting. Here, and when I moved here with my parents, my mom and dad, my dad would always make sure to read with me, and my mom, we would always have these little mini competitions about with the multiplication tables where it'd be like 1 times 2 times 3, and let's see who could do it faster. Those experiences made me realize like, oh, hey, learning is cool. It's fun. It's really fun. With respect to what I'm doing right now, I don't think there was a moment where I was like, oh, this is, especially during childhood.
So it seems like a lot of family was just a big push for you and continuing to do well in your education.
Right. And I think that's good that they did that. Ultimately, my life, and even though at a young age I don't have the scope of realizing what a future really is and what comes with a future, I think they did a good job.
And would you say your family was a big part of your life and continue on to education? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think one of the big things that I realized is that I really didn't know what a PhD was, what a doctorate degree, what graduate school was until probably sophomore year of college, so my second year of college. And that's like coming to realize that's pretty late, not knowing what's next after college. I always thought that after college, once I was done with college, I could be done and get a job or something along the lines. And obviously that's a good step too. And as long as you get your college degree, I think that's great. But for the sciences, I think that being able to pursue even further and going into research where there's funds and there's, people will push you and help you out to get through that. I think that was always great. And my parents told me, yeah, do that. You can go into med school, grad school, whatever you want to do.
Oh, okay. Yeah, definitely. And can you tell me about someone who has been the biggest influence in your life?
Yeah, I think my mentor in college, and I think ultimately because of him, he opened a lot of doors for me. A lot of doors. Thanks to science actually, and to him and to research, I was able to not only get funded, so I got paid to do research, but I was also able to travel a lot. So third year of college, I was able to go out to Houston and do a summer internship at Baylor College of Medicine. And I did that 2 summers in a row. And I feel that because of the experiences within college of doing research and because of him opening all these doors, I was also able to apply to a lot of grad schools and be successful at that. And thanks to that, I think I owe him a lot. I think his mentorship, because of him, I was able to not only stay on track, but also get the keys to opening new doors that have ultimately led me to where I am now.
Definitely. What advice would you give to children who would like to enter into a STEM profession?
Nice. Yeah, I think ask questions. I think asking the questions and being able to overcome a little bit of the fear will get you places. And if you're interested in something, if you're interested in it, ask a question and try to get into that. Try to ask those questions and try to get to know more about whatever you're interested in, because there's something out there for you, and you won't know until you ask around, or you won't know until you actually get exposed to it. For example, for me, it wasn't until I reached high school and late on in high school that I realized, oh, psychology, the brain, that's what I want to study. But if I hadn't taken that class, if I hadn't asked those questions during class, I wouldn't have realized that was exactly what I wanted to do.
What's something you would tell them to possibly convince them to either pursue, education in that area, or even as possibly as a career?
Yeah, I think a big thing about science that I've learned is that you will fail at times. And for example, with research experiments, we do a lot of experiments here in lab, and let's say out of 100, maybe, only 1 or 2 or 3 will work, and you fail a lot. And it's fine. It's fine because that means that those things don't work. And now you know. But there's nothing wrong with that. And if you want to actually do what you want to do, and if you try, and if you fail, don't give up. Keep going. It's part of life, and it's natural to fail. It's natural to not fulfill those dreams immediately. It takes time, and that's one of the big things about research. The perseverance that we have is what keeps us going.
Definitely. And I mean, as you mentioned too, said the underrepresented population too that doesn't know a lot of the information about this, and it, could possibly push them away because they think, oh, it's a lot of financial strain, or it's a lot of money. But yeah, just to educate them and things like that is very big. What would be some advice or information you would tell for some of those individuals that seem underrepresented in also in regards to STEM too?
Right. I think there's help. There's always help out there. Finding a mentor, I think, is a big thing. If you can find a mentor who's someone you can trust. I know it's easier said than done, but once you find them, stick to them. They'll help you out. Opening the doors, not only for yourself, but for the people that come after you, I think is important. Still have the questions to ask. So there's always funding and help for students that want to pursue that. And I think colleges now, especially with the push towards increasing diversity, want to help out students with an underrepresented background, want to help students that have had socioeconomic hardship. And if we can use those tools and use those to our advantage, I think we can get those people to not only be informed, but also reach the same goals that others have.
Definitely. And when you were when were you also like informed with getting the tools to pursue higher education? Was that during the time you discovered the psychology class?
Yeah, so I knew from high school that college was important. My parents always told me, like, go to college, there's with college, you don't want to be working at McDonald's or, after whatever. And there's nothing wrong with working at McDonald's, but if you can get out of there and you have the work ethic to get out of there, you can. But little things like that in the beginning of high school where they tell you like, oh, go to college, get a degree. They tell you that and you get to know about that, but you don't know how to get there. And I think up to understand what college was up around the same time, like you said, when I finally took the psychology course. Mm-hmm. And I was able to apply. And even though at the time I had this idea of wanting to go to a big university, the university that I went to, even though small, I think as long as you work hard, you can get those tools that you need to get to places. I've had a lot of friends also who do a different route, and a lot of people think that it's high school, college, and etc. in that straight line, but it doesn't have to be that way. People take their own different routes, and that's fine too. Make it yours and work for it.
Totally agree. And I'd like to thank you, Sal, for taking the time to share your story. It's been really inspiring.
Thank you, Jacob. That was fun.
Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed our program. STEM Inspired is a project of BC STEM Ventura County's cross-sector network to improve educational outcomes in the STEM fields from early learning to career. STEM Inspired is generously funded by Arconic. Innovation engineered. Please join us next time as we continue to dive into the lives and experiences of STEM professionals. As always, I'm Jacob Zindahaz. Discover new things. You never know when an interest can become a passion that can change the world. This has been STEM Inspired.